All right, well, our next speaker is Kaylee Higgins. And I have a little info here, I think, on Kaylee. Kaylee has a passion for creating experiences where people can slow down and connect to their intuition, to the rhythms of the natural world, and to community. She's certified in health and wellness. She's a yoga instructor and herbalist, and specializes in heart-centered living and soul exploration, mindfulness training, healing with herbs, and flower essences. She believes in the healing is the process of coming home to oneself and place in the world. Life is a journey and a dance. Each person's soul is unique and requires different support through the seasons. Her business, Moon River Wellness, offers holistic wellness services and programs that nourish and remind you that your body, mind, and spirit are already whole. Kaylee Higgins.
Hello. Thank you everybody for coming to the Arts and Healing Forum. I'm so excited to be here speaking on a few of the things that really excite me. My presentation title is The Art of Herbalism Today. I thought that that would kind of capture the all-encompassing nature of what the Arts and Healing Forum is trying to do, which brings us to this question, which I had to keep in mind because I can tend to veer off. How does art bring awareness and healing to the individual, but also the environment? So that's the question that I'm going to attempt to bring in from an herbalist standpoint. And the main word I want to bring in is connection. So just to kind of start, as a young girl, I've always been one that has seen the connection between art, healing, and nature. Growing up, I was one of those kids that was fortunate enough to play outside all the time. And I also was one that was, not, as Jean had mentioned before, able to just connect to the artistic motions of things without the judgment piece. So I love to draw and I love to write. I still do a little bit of writing now. And back then, when I was a kid, I didn't have the awareness or intention around, I'm going to draw now, so I'm going to heal myself, from drawing, or I'm going to write to heal myself. It was more of like, I'm a teenager with problems and I don't know what to do, so I'm going to write in my journal about it. And, through that process, it was a healing process for me, though at the time that wasn't my intention. But I was living that experience. Same thing happened later in college. I also liked to make jewelry, and I had a spell where I was really sick in college, and I was kind of a distracted college student, so my parents at the time would not let me bring my beads to college so I could focus on my studies. But when I had this sick moment, I was home, and I just without thinking about it, I'm gonna go pick up my beads because it's gonna make me feel better. I just intuitively found my way to my jewelry box and started to create things, and within a short amount of time was feeling better through that process. So I've always felt like I've embodied that through my life, and now as I've grown older, I continue to see this connection. So it brings me to kind of my simple way of addressing a very complex question. I love this quote by Martin Luther King Jr. It really boils down to this, that all life is interrelated. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one destiny affects all indirectly. So for me, how does art bring awareness to healing the individual, but also the environment, is really simple. Because as individuals, when we connect to art and awareness, that art leads us to ourselves, it leads us to the present moment, into healing, which also gives us a greater awareness, right? That then leads us to this idea that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of the environment, we're part of nature, and it makes the severity of our problems seem a lot less big. And we've seen it in, you know, the ancient healing traditions like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda out of India. They talk about, you know, so above, or yeah, as above, so below. This idea that we're the microcosm of the macrocosm, we're all connected. And for me too, this place of connection takes place in the heart. So I'll kind of explain more why that's important as well when we bring it more into the herbs. So art, it takes people out of ordinary time and space and brings us into sacred time and space where we can see ourselves from a new perspective. We see a different world. It's just like Jean was mentioning about seeing this perspective. Art allows us to look at things in a different way. And in this sort of light, the same goes for herbs and plants. So as an herbalist, I'm constantly being in a different time and place, because oftentimes when people think of plants, you know, you don't really think of plants. Maybe you're walking and you notice there's a plant on the sidewalk, but really it takes kind of a different way of seeing the world to make a connection to plants. And really, there's great healing when we take time to start noticing our surroundings and noticing those green plants, because many of those plants have healing that is waiting for us. And a lot of it too is just calling us to be in the present moment and to be grounded, because in order to know ourselves, and you know, art helps us know ourselves, art and nature helps us connect to ourselves, we have to be here. You know, if we're on our phone or if we're somewhere else, we're not gonna have, you know, an epiphany of what we need in the moment. So for me, really, art is about listening, nature is about listening, healing is about listening, and that's a big part of my practice as an herbalist. To say a little more about how I define what goes on when people receive healing from plants is it's a co-creative process between plants and people that involves connection to the healing power of nature within us, so that's on the individual level, and then outside of us, the environmental level. So it's happening, again, in that micro and macro level way, and it's symbiotic. So both the person and the plant benefit from this relationship. And you know, I think that a lot of us maybe forget our connection to nature and to the plants in this way, but basically we need the plant kingdom to feed ourselves, to eat. Like, much of our food comes from nature, and that's healing. You know, we rely on plants in a big way, and the more we start to recognize that, the more we'll start to value nature and start taking care of our environment as well. And I want to say something about that, is nature as its role in healing. I have a quote up there. Nature shows us what real science is about. It's not about feeding nutrient pellets, all weighing the same, to inbred laboratory rats who all look the same and share brother-sister DNA. It's about observing the natural laws of the universe. It's about working within those laws to our benefit. It's swimming with nature's tidal rhythms. So the idea behind why I share this quote is that a lot of our day and age, we're being called to come back to nature to heal us, because we often don't pay attention to the cycles of seasons around us. You know, especially in Minnesota, it's like the first sign of 50-degree weather, we're gonna be wearing our shorts and our flip-flops. You know, we have our intentions of what we wanna be doing, but really there is a deep science and a deep wisdom that nature has it's just like the miracle of a baby being born. If we had to think about how to make a baby in our bodies, it's just nature helps us with that. And so if we can learn to trust and reconnect to nature in this way, we can start to ignite the healing within ourselves. And how this works in herbalism is plants, really, they stand their own ground on their own. Like, no one's there watching over for a plant to make sure the plant's gonna survive. If anything, people are coming and they're spraying Roundup or they're gonna step on the plant. The plant has no defense other than its own natural defense. And so as a result, plants have become very, very powerful medicinally because they have to fight for themselves. They have to create their own antibacterial formulas because when a bug hits them, they're not going to go to the doctor and take a pill. They have to make it themselves. They're going to develop stronger roots if they're growing in an environment where, maybe there is going to be lots of wind and it needs to stay in balance. So they're going to react to their environment. And what plants do for people is they share this wisdom that they have of how they heal themselves by showing your body how your body can heal itself naturally. So when you drink a tea or eat a salad or something, those plants are helping your body remember, okay, how do I stay whole? How do I stand my ground when I'm feeling sick? So the other quote I wanted to put up here, which kind of simplifies what I just said, is that humankind can only copy imperfectly what nature produces perfectly. And there's two sides to this. I don't fully, there's two ways to look at this quote. So the first way I look at this quote is that it's this idea that we're kind of coming to this society where we want to create pills, we want to create solutions to our problems. We're extracting a lot of things from plants, and rather than recognizing that nature has an abundance of resources for us at our fingertips, that we don't need to go and exploit and trademark and make our own, but if we're really paying attention and connected, we can find healing from that. I also wanted to mention with this quote from an artistic lens, and also from the lens of my practice as an herbalist, is that I actually don't fully believe, I do believe humans can, it's not necessarily copying. I feel that humans can be producing and expressing themselves as nature. So rather than, this is a picture of that lake over there, really what it is this is you as a being, as a person in nature, expressing yourself and what's true to you. It's just like the idea of like a honeybee that's, building a hive. We're doing our work, we're expressing, and when we're doing that from that place of our heart space, from that feeling place that was mentioned before, we're actually producing art. We are nature. There's not this, we're copied. That's just my feeling about that. And how plants help people is that when you start connecting with plants, you can get to that self that's able to self-express in however that is for you. It might be painting, it might not be. It might be, being a parent. It might be just being a sensitive person who can listen well. I mean, it looks like so many different things. And so that brings me back again to drawing me back into why we're here talking about the plants. But we have a deep relationship with plants, and plants literally breathe in what we breathe out. So we have a connection that's undeniable, and it's really important that we honor this. And when we do honor this, we will see the benefits. Something that was really helpful to me, someone was mentioning, all of the chemicals and things we're putting in our environment now. with plants, it's like if you're using plant material, the plants will compost, they have innate intelligence, they know how to take care of themselves. So the more we kind of live in grain with the way of the world, the better it will be for the planet and for ourselves. And the other piece too is plants are really great at cleaning up and cleaning out. So many of the plants that are used in my practice you see people drinking like detox teas and things, they help with the removal of waste products, because what they do, lots of plants, they clean our soil. They pick up heavy metals and things from the soil. That's what their job, their self-expression to do in the world is help clean and purify. The other fun thing to note is, as an herbalist and just a person who's an appreciator of art and nature, is starting to see plants differently. There's something called the doctrine of signatures, some of you may be familiar with, but it's this idea that plants really, just like people, they have different attributes, different behaviors, they look a certain way, they grow up in certain conditions, and those can give us hints as to how they may benefit us. And for me, as an herbalist, really, all I do is I connect people to plants. And what I do is I'm kind of looking at the plants, checking out what the plant's personality is, and then seeing if it has similar personalities to the client that's coming in. But to give some examples of the doctrine of signatures and how I use that in my practice is you kind of have to see the plant from an artistic lens. You don't look at the plant and you're like, okay, I know that this is warming, based on science, I know this is a bitter, or, and this gives us these certain properties. You're actually looking at it from your feeling space. You're not thinking about it, but you're feeling, what does this plant do? Maybe you're experiencing it. Maybe you take a taste of it. What does it do in my body? What does it do in this person's body? And you start experiencing it that way. And then you start noticing things that if you were thinking, you wouldn't otherwise see. So an example, I have a ginkgo leaf up here, and if some of you have heard, ginkgo's been popularized to help with memory loss, and it's helpful for the brain in that capacity. But if you look at the ginkgo leaf, what does it kind of look like to you? If you had to guess. Yes, so the brain, 2 hemispheres of the brain. It's really interesting. Something else with the doctrine of signatures, the ginkgo tree is one of the oldest trees around. So we're thinking about the type of client who might use that. They're older, generally. When you tend to collect ginkgo leaves, you collect them when they're turning yellow. This is actually very uncommon in plant medicine. You usually want to be picking things at their height of their peak, but with the ginkgo leaf, the way the traditional healers have worked with them is they work with the leaves right as they're falling when they're yellow. What does that say about the medicine? Who it might be helpful for? Memory. This is just one example of how you can start to look at a plant and see a plant and be in relation with a plant differently than our typical, I'm just going to kind of study the contour and the properties. So it just brings me back again to the words connection, connection, connection. The best healing occurs when there is a connection between the plant and the person. And when that connection facilitates the whole self-expression of both the plant and the person. And what I mean by that is with plants and herbalists, we don't take a plant to treat the disease, we're treating the person. And every person is going to go out of balance differently. And so it's this co-creative process that happens. It's herbs are amphoteric, so what amphoteric means is they balance things out. They can act as a base and an acid. So that's why something you might read, it says it could cause diarrhea and constipation, and you're like, how does that work? It's because what it does is the plant uses its innate intelligence to go within and see, okay, where are you leaning? I'm gonna bring you back the other way. And that's the beauty of nature. That's the art of healing. That's what it means to be in commune with nature. And that's also another reason why you shouldn't stay on an herb forever, because over time things can cause what they cure, because once you come back into balance, you might start leaning in the opposite direction. So this comes back to the need, the art of listening, how nature calls us to listen, how the healing process calls us to listen. And I wanted to kind of conclude this with my own personal story, which is always a risk, but for me, I'm definitely a consumer of health and wellness. You know, I would be here listening. I always love to learn. And as a wellness practitioner, you know, I do yoga and meditation, and I'm an herbalist and all of that. But really, bottom line, the most healing that I've experienced has come from when I wasn't trying to heal, but when I was being connected to that creative space, when I was able to be artistic. And so I want to share a story that ties this together as well with my herb practice. But when I went on a writing retreat in Montana, you know, I was going there with the goal, originally, my goal of, I'm going to write a book. Because, you know, it's a writing retreat, just go write a book. It sounds really relaxing and no pressure. But so as I was sharing this with my partner, you know, he started to roll his eyes at me, and he was like, you need to just go and have fun. Like, you love to write. You're not going there to start gathering and thinking about what kind of retreat you can do, or, you know, what you're gonna do with your life. Like, just go and have fun. And that meant a lot to me too, because I mean, there's a price tag on these things, right? So people wanna know, well, what's the outcome? You're gonna spend this money, spend this time away, what's the outcome? But with art, it's about the process, right? It's not about the outcome. You get more healing and benefit from not labeling and just viewing, you know, tunnel vision, this is my outcome. So I went and, you know, I did that. I was just, I'm gonna have fun. And then of course what happened was I had a breakdown. So because I allowed myself the space and the vulnerability to do so, I think, you know, if I was going with my little student healer hat on, I would have had my clipboard, you know, I wouldn't have been engaged as much. You know, I'd be looking at it from a different view, but I let myself go and experience the retreat, experience the healing power of writing, and being in nature, of course. So this retreat was in Montana. We were, you know, on lots of acreages of woods. There were plant walks, which, you know, to an herbalist is like a double bonus. So anyway, while I was there, I just wanted to mention what happened as it relates to plants. So there, you know, there was a lot of healing that happened for me that kind of came around me becoming a mother. I had had some resistance. I was adopted from a young age, and so my initial impressions in the world as, you know, being born and sent away and, you know, finding a new family has imprinted me in certain ways that have been much deeper than I can always unpack with the linear mind. And, you know, every so often things will just happen where, you know, okay, it's just another layer of the onions coming off and I'm healing a little more. I've thought for a while I've been in a pretty good place with that, but recently as a new mom, I was having some struggles around being a mom and accepting that and the mom guilt and all of that kind of stuff. So while I was at Montana, it's just interesting how nature corresponds, but I was on a farm where all of these horses were coming and they were licking my belly. And I was just crying. You know, I didn't know why it was making me cry. It wasn't like, oh, I'm crying because I'm connecting to my story of when I was abandoned, and, you know, it wasn't like that. It was just, there was something on the energetic realm that was happening to me that was happening in support of nature. And that was the beginning of my sort of they were pointing me in direction of starting to understand what was happening with my process. Because I went there and I was gonna write a memoir, and then it ended up turning into me writing a lot about kind of whining about my relationship and being a new parent. Like, all of this stuff with parenthood was coming up. I'm like, I'm not gonna be a parent writer, like, but that was what needed to pass. And so then the next day when I was on the plant walk, and thank you for staying with me this far, I saw this flower, which, you know, I asked the guy who's leading the plant walk, and, you know, he just, I don't know how he got that job, but he just wasn't really into plants. So he, you know, the mosquitoes were all over us, and like he was running, and I was like, what's this? What's that? And he's like, who's this person on my plant walk? So he's like, well, go ask, you know, I know someone who knows the answer. So I went back and I asked the retreat leader who lives in the area, and she likes plants, what it was, and she said Mariposa lily. And so I knew that name. I'm like, oh, that there was a faint recollection that I think I studied that plant, but you know, there's lots of plants out there, and things become relevant to you as they need to be. So I looked up that night. Mariposa lily is, it's the Flower Essence Society, which this is just a different way of preparation of plant medicine, makes this flower essence, and it's known as Embrace of Unconditional Love and Warmth. Some of the other key words with it were adoption, abandonment, mothering, healing from motherhood, or from, you know, when you're not being held by your mother. And it just kind of like, you know, I didn't need another thing to come kind of down on me, but at the time, yes, I did. And why did that plant keep calling to me? And see, I'm sharing this story with you because it all is connected. It's when we stop and we pay attention. Nature is trying to support us, and plants especially, they're there for you. Some people are going to be, everyone is going to be different though. I'm not endorsing or saying there's one way or another. You know, you might be a rock or a crystals person, and I can lead you to another person who speaks in that language. But it really, these are just different tools and ways for us to connect to ourselves and to something greater than us. That's what I believe art does for us. It lets us pause, be in the moment, connect here, and then somehow in that connection point, we find something much deeper that's much bigger and greater than our world could ever be. And I just wanted to mention a few things about flower essences before I close. But according to kind of the flower essence perspective, to flower essence people, health is the ability to fully participate in the rhythms of life, feeling the glory of the sun, celebrating the cycles of the seasons, sensing nature's pulse of life within us. It's that connection piece that I was talking about. It helps us let go of the need to, you know, be so strongly tied to our identity and, you know, to what we've been told we should be, societal's sort of pressures. And true health also activates self-awareness. So it means we're taking responsibility for our life's challenges. We're aware. We're empowered to be co-creators in this process. And flower essences, what I love is they don't work because of the chemical composition, but because of the life force that they embody, that's derived from the planet. Each essence embodies the specific energetic patterns of the flower. So you think, you know, when the whole purpose of a flower's life is to become the flower, right? And reproduce, you know, pass on its legacy. And what happens is when we interact with those flowers, they interact with our human energy fields, the mental, emotional, spiritual, those things that we can't always name. It's just like with the Mariposa lily for me. That flower brought into my awareness something that was lingering, not really on the level of my physical active awareness, but something much deeper. And this is where it's drawn to art. I love this, and this comes from Patricia Kaminsky. She's the woman who is one of the founders of Flower Essence Society. She says, the action of flower essences can be compared to the effects we experience from hearing a particularly moving piece of music or seeing an inspirational work of art. The light or sound waves which reach our senses may evoke profound feelings in our soul, which indirectly affect our breathing, pulse rate, and other physical states of being. It awakens an experience in our soul. And the term is resonance. I mean, music people know this. So when that guitar chord is struck and it's met with a voice of a matching tone, that's what it's like between the flower essence and the soul self, that it hits resonance within your soul, and anything that's not you falls away. And to me, I mean, it's just powerful and exciting, and it gets me pretty eager to go to work every day and to go outside on walks and just be with the plants. So I've said a lot. Slow down, take a breath. This will be kind of my concluding piece, but it's just the more we can breathe and just, just breathing, we're engaging with the plants, we're breathing out, you're having a relationship with the plants there. The more we can come to the present moment, be who we are meant to be in the world, and then the more we're who we are supposed to be, we're doing a service to the environment, because the environment wants you to be you. And when we heal ourselves, we heal everyone around us. The healing that I did with the Mariposa Lily, I know I'm healing my family and my mother, who's still alive now, because of that connection. And the more we can connect to art and nature, the more this healing comes, the more plants will be there for us, and the more we can find time to be in that sacred space of healing and away from just ordinary time. So I'm just going to end on that. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Experiences with plants? Thumbs up? Oh, question?
So my question, we can find plants anywhere. If we even are a cub and we're drawn to an herb there or a plant there, it isn't just always walking, correct?
Right. Yes, I mean, it could even be your favorite flower that you've had of all time. It might be a plant you've never met, or a plant you've drawn, you just were called to draw. You can go online and I think there was a book called The Secret Language of Flowers that popularized the Victorian era, where people used to send messages with flowers. But there's large bodies of research that are now being filled that will give you information that you can start looking up. Oh, is there a message in this flower? And I would really try to veer away from judging it as good or bad, because what plants do are they bring something into your awareness. So it's not about, oh, I have a cool plant, or I always get the plants that have thorns and have these messages. It's like, really start looking at what your reaction is to that and what might be there, and then know that we're always evolving, plants are evolving, so that could change too. Your relationship over time with that plant could change, and the messages could change. Some plants will be there with you, allies for life. Some are come and go nature. Gee.
I have a really strong connection with ferns for some reason. Can you give me any thoughts on, is there anything about ferns that you can share about in regard?
Well, I really think if you have a strong connection to ferns, it would be interesting for you to go in and start drawing in on metaphors. So like looking at the fern, maybe really drawing the fern with a different intention and awareness. I try to step away, same with like dream analysis. I try to just step away from labeling right away. Okay, fern means this. Because people get different messages from different plants. There's not just a right answer. There's bodies of work that it's like happened that 10 people people came up with the same answer. So we're starting to find that helps, but it's going to be different for everyone. Personally, I don't have a connection to ferns in that way, so I can't share from my own experience, but I would love to hear what you find out. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, a couple things. First, I really liked your statement about the plants breathing in what we breathe out. And I just wanted to add, because it fits with your closing about us breathing, that we breathe in what they breathe out. Because the oxygen on Earth was not in our atmosphere until the ancestors of the first plants, the green bacteria, came about. So I just wanted to add that, and I also wanted to say that I really appreciated your sharing of your personal story, and I wondered whether you have, since you have this interest in jewelry making, have you ever incorporated plants into your jewelry at all, any herbs?
At this time, I haven't. In my jewelry making world, was wounded a little when I went to college because my parents are like, you can't bring that there. And for a while, you know, I started to sell things because they were like, you have to sell things because you have way too many pieces of jewelry you can't wear. And so I try to be careful with it, but it's certainly something that I wanted to explore, definitely, but I haven't, not at this juncture. Thanks for your reflection. I wish we could have captured that on here, but I can't repeat what she said. That was really beautiful.
Fortunately, we'll hear more, I think. But, well, Kaylee, this is wonderful. I had a quick question for you. One is that I've read a little information about people saying that part of plant intelligence is their success. Different species such as corn, you know, which has become a great monoculture and is very successful, and maybe it's because they're intelligent and somehow manipulate humans. Yeah, it's a strange thought. And you know, another one is marijuana, which we've had this battle with. We've tried to kill the plant, and now we're trying to cultivate it. So, do you have any thoughts about that as far as diversity and intelligence of plants?
I'll try to make this really quick. So I definitely think plants are very intelligent. There's more studies, and it's not eco-psychology, it's another word that is not in my mind right now that is studying the intelligence of plants. But they're very smart, and what I would say about the monoculture and sort of like our relationship, it comes back to relationships. So what's our relationship to corn? I mean, we're addicted to it. Or what's our relationship to tobacco? Tobacco used to be a sacred plant, sacred ceremony, and in a way, people who are smoking, maybe at one point it was a ritual, but we're in an abusive relationship, and so we definitely need to look at our role in what's going on with those plants and what messages they're bringing us. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Kaylee. Wonderful talk.
But I don't know, like what you did. I mean, I know we didn't spend like it was less than an hour where you identified those particular herbs.
Yes.
And all I can say is it was quite mind blowing because I don't know, I have flexibility.
Well,
No.
you and that was it's co-creative, so the plants alone can't do that. That was so Thea had shared that she came in and we made a formula for her to help some arthritis and some past damage from an accident of some, or overuse. And we just quickly made a formula for her, and I use pulse testing, so it's the body is the ultimate teller to let us know. So I can have my ideas of this is really helpful for this, but we let the body decide in the end what it wants. So I had kind of my remedies that help with that, and then, but what I wanted to add was that Thea's own process of where she was and where she was ready to heal is just like, don't discount that. We want to always explain that this is what helped me, but she was an active participant in that too. So I don't want people to take like, oh, you can take this herb and it will happen. It's co-creation, but it is amazing. It's amazing when it happens, but don't have high expectations, because then, you know, it's the process, right?
I guess we have time for one more question.
I just want to see, did you go home to your partner and say, thank you so much for suggesting or forcing you to have fun? We don't allow ourselves to have fun much anymore, and I think that's a big part. Even though it came to not having fun while you were going through the process.
Right. Yes, every day I try to remind myself to be thankful to my partner, because I don't always, you know, we don't always share our gratitude for that in people, so.
There was one gal who's been waiting to ask a question
Sorry, Irene?
for a long time.
I was curious about people with allergies to nature and what your perspective is that if it's an imbalance that we have with nature, or is it, how do you treat that?
Okay. We'll make,
Keep that in.
yep, so the question was, how do you respond to people who have allergies to nature? Is that an imbalance? And it's hard to say because it's getting a little diagnostical without knowing the person, but my general spiel I give about allergies is that right now our body and our environmental body is heavily polluted and toxic, and the earth is trying, you know, to go through the process, but we're not helping it. And so what happens is we're starting to become reflections, just like we're seeing animals in the sea showing up sick. We're the earth body ourselves. And so what happens when allergies happen from my herbalist perspective is that the body is overtaxed and it's not able to process things correctly. So it's identifying certain things, certain allergies, as, you know, it's setting off an immune response and it's not able to remove it. So you're kind of at battle with yourself with that. And so I always recommend people start cleaning out, like working with the liver and the kidneys, you know, whole body support, so that you can just start cleansing the blood so that you're not as bothered by allergies. And yet there are certain things like physical chemical allergies people just have, right? So it isn't just this. There's two parts to that, but thank you everyone for your questions.
Thanks so much, Kaylee.